It's a great pleasure and honor to have this interview with Ireland's ambassador, Ms. Jackie O'Hallory-Burstein. She's with us in Universidad Siglo XXI, Córdoba. Thanks, Jackie, for your presence. I would like to ask you some few questions related, for example, to the leading role that Ireland is playing in disarmament. What can you tell me about these? What are your views related to the successes and shortcomings or challenges in the future as related to non-proliferation weapons and disarmament?
Thank you very much, Karina, and it's a real pleasure for me to be here and to learn about Universidad Siglo XXI and your objectives and goals, which I think are very close to Ireland's foreign policy objectives and goals for a fairer and more secure and just world. Ireland has had a long history of involvement in disarmament and non-proliferation of weapons. It is one of our most important foreign policy objectives, and we pursue it across the fields of nuclear and conventional weapons. It's a very challenging time for disarmament. There are big difficulties now, particularly with regard to the proliferation of nuclear weapons. We've seen what happened in North Korea, and the withdrawal of the US from the Intermediate Nuclear Forces in Europe treaty is very challenging, and also their withdrawal from the deal to prevent Iran from acquiring nuclear weapons. So these are big challenges that we work with on a daily basis, but there are also some very promising developments. Last year, the United Nations adopted a treaty to prohibit nuclear weapons.
That's the NPT?
No.
Or a statement?
The NPT is a treaty aimed at non-proliferation of nuclear weapons, but it doesn't expressly forbid nuclear weapons. The new treaty is a prohibition treaty that states that because of the humanitarian consequences of the use of nuclear weapons, that they should be prohibited. And it provides a list of prohibitions that would prevent states from acquiring or possessing nuclear weapons. And Ireland was very proud to be among the group of states that brought forward the UN resolution that led to the adoption of the treaty last year. The treaty already has something like 60 signatories and 20 ratifications. Once it reaches 50 ratifications, it will enter into force and become international law.
Okay, it's promising.
So that is a
panorama.
very promising development. Also, it's a little contradictory, but because there have been these very negative developments with regard to possible use of nuclear weapons, civil society and people generally have become again much more aware of the humanitarian disaster that nuclear weapons can bring. And so there is much more interest in countries now and much more movements to ban nuclear weapons. And that's also very important and very promising, this new engagement of civil society to ban them.
Thank you. Connected to this topic, I'm thinking about you as a woman being involved in these topics, these issues. Was it hard for you? How is, the role of women and the involvement in disarmament?
Yes, that is a really interesting issue, because I had worked always in fields where I had had a lot to do with gender equality and with promoting women's participation in government, in leadership roles, and in peace processes. And when I joined disarmament, which is now almost 5 years ago, I was struck immediately at how few women were in the room when I would go to meetings, and also that there seemed to be no women experts in the field, because the panels and the experts who were giving the discussions were almost all men. Just because I came from that background of having worked on gender issues for years, I started to, look for the women. And funnily enough, there were lots of women. There were lots of women experts, and there were lots of women who could be on panels and could take the work forward. And so I formed a group with some like-minded other states and civil society. And we started working to engage women and engage states to make sure that they had women in their disarmament teams. We also funded research, because if you want to do something, it's really important to have your baseline and to establish that it's not just an impression that I had walking into a room, but that actually there was an issue about women's participation. And yes, when we did the research, we discovered that in all the disarmament forums, there were only 20 to 25% women, whereas in the other similar United Nations forums on other issues like sustainable development and environment, social issues, there would be more like 40 to 45%. So there's been a big movement now to engage more women. The expert panels will always seek to have women on them now. And the new treaty that we spoke about actually includes clauses which puts a positive obligation on states to include women in their delegations to the meetings. So once the treaty comes into force, that would be the very first time in an international treaty that the equal participation of men and women in the work is part of the actual law of the treaty.
That's great.
Yeah, we're very pleased with that outcome. We worked very hard for it, but what was great was there was very little opposition to it. The states who wanted to adopt the treaty were really open. That was
it's a global issue.
122 states
not only
voted to adopt it. Yeah.
Not only
So
in
that
this
was great.
sphere, but in general in
Yes.
different spheres and positions of authorities.
Yeah.
And last question, what are your goals or objectives you want to achieve during your term as an ambassador in Argentina, Paraguay, Bolivia and Uruguay?
I'm really honoured and delighted to take this post. I came 5 months ago, and our objective, it's very simple, is to really deepen the relationship between Ireland and between the countries to which the mission is accredited. And we want to do that. There were several focuses for our attention. One is the commercial that we spoke about in the meeting, that it's really important to deepen our commercial and economic relationships. But I also, because there isn't much immigration now in either direction between the two countries, we think it's really important to deepen the human, the people-to-people relationships, and reaching out to universities and looking for possibilities of cooperation and exchanges between students and academics. That's a big focus of our work, to see if we can bring forward some cooperation at an institutional level, perhaps between universities in Ireland and universities in Argentina and the other countries, so that there can be a greater exchange, and the populations of the universities can experience and learn about each other's countries.
That will be great, because our students, they really would like to have these opportunities and international exchanges.
Yeah, and Irish students too. So this is something that we would really like to work on.
Last question. I already said that. What would you say to a student that is learning and taking opportunities and looking at the world?
Yeah, I would say first of all to really, really enjoy these years, because I think those years that you are learning and studying at university are really special. And to study in an enabling environment, something that you love doing, is such a positive experience. And then I would say when you're going forward into your career that to really, first of all, to see the connections between things. And that by keeping in mind those connections, you will always see how you can bring something extra. That's maybe not just your job, but that you will see that, oh, here there is an opportunity to do something different, to do something that brings me closer to my objectives, or that helps the world, if it doesn't sound too large, but something that helps to make the world a better place, a more secure, a fairer place. And I think it's always being sort of open to those opportunities and to seeing where there is a possibility, even if it's something that seems very, very small. It all helps. So that would be what I would say.
Completely agree. Okay, thanks a lot, Jackie, for this enriching time and your presence, and hopefully we can work closely.
I would love that. Thank you, Karina, and thank you very much for the opportunity to come here today and to meet all those wonderful young people. It's very energizing and really, really positive that so many were interested to learn about Ireland.
You're welcome.
Thank you.